Ndị be anyị ekenenu m unu. Asị nke ụbọchị nke taa dịrị unu na mma. Asịkwa nka nke onye chili ya zelu. Anya sị na ọ ya dara n'Igbo na mma na n'Igbo ya dịka echi na-echi ada agwụ agwụ dịka anyị kwuru otu aka ọ ya dịrịrị ise ise ise. Dịka anyị si kwukwa unu nkwa na anyị ga-ewetara unu ya bụ daily update n'ilu akwụkwọ ụbọchị taa maka ka ya bụ ife si ada na gbasịta maka ihe na-eme na ndịda anyanwụ ka anyị na-akpọ Eastern Region. O nwere ihe mee n'ilu akwụkwọ ife a bụ international media. O nwere ife akwụgasị gbasịta maka ya bụ nwere onwe ndị Igbo na-azọ and gbasịta maka ihe dị iche iche. O nwegasị ya pụtagasị aka maka anyị kwuru unu nkwa na anyị ga na-etiri unu update ọbụla bụ gbasịtara maka ihe na-eme n'ala Igbo and the whole nation. Again ya bụ ife ka ọ na-efe ihe nwanne anyị nwoke kwuru. O kwuru uche ya, so anyị mere anyị ji wee tie unu ya si uche onye adị na njọ. Mana gị bụ onye ọma na-ege ntị, gịnị ị ga-esi ya bụ ife ikwu ife i chere gbasịta maka ya bụ ife ndị a niile kwugasị ọ rụtagasị aka dị iche iche n'ilu akwụkwọ. All right, over to you, sir.
The people we elect are reflections of who we are.
Sure.
We have spoken at length about the evil nature of our rulers, but we cannot readily excuse ourselves because even though our democracy is not perfect, we have tolerated evil and become acculturated to it. We've completely forgotten about values. So this, for me, this coming election is about us as a people, as a collective. What kind of people are we? We've hidden behind the rulers for too long. We've blamed our woes on the pimpish, consumptive men whom we have elected as rulers over our country. For too long, we have blamed our woes on those ones. We've blamed it on them as though they are the reasons we are where we are. But the truth is, we should really look more closely in our own mirror when we begin to look for the reason why Nigeria is the way it is. 2023 is a lot clearer. We have no excuses. It's a clear choice between light and darkness. I have no hesitation in describing both Atiku and Tinubu as twin horsemen of the apocalypse. There is nothing about them that inspires hope or change. If anything, they seem like the sort of forces that consumes light, drains out the energy. These are old men who should be sleeping somewhere. If they have anything, they should be paying penance.
When the evidences of your senses are overwhelming in pointing out to you that the path you are about to take is a ruinous one, you shouldn't require me to tell you not to take that path. The fact on the ground is that you have had 7 years of APC. It has destroyed Nigeria. I have had occasion to say this long before I joined the fray on anybody's part, that what I'm seeing before me is a country destroyed beyond repairs. What you might do is to reimagine that country and then begin to put it back together in its new form. When you are now bringing Bola Ahmed Tinubu, so there is a disaster waiting to succeed a disaster, Nigeria won't survive such a person. So you, on the other hand, you have a Mikano, Etiku. What value has he ever added to Nigeria beyond an entitlement of the right to rule? What value? So he has a university that came as a function of his having sat in the office of the vice president. He has been a public servant practically the totality of his life, and yet he has amassed untold wealth. Any thinking people would not want anything to do with these two failures. They are proven failures. Every other person you might say you are taking a chance on any other person, no matter who that other person might be, amongst the raft of presidential candidates that are left in the race. But to be looking at those two and be considering them as choices in our present circumstances, 1,000 naira is exchanging for £1. And we are still talking about any one of these characters that have brought us to this place. Please now. Are we all right? In all honesty, let me just be very clear with you. I cannot, in good conscience, look at these two men and see candidates. And I can't, in good conscience, believe that we would probably have enough people. Because I don't know if the person who will vote for a Tinubu or an Atiku, in the face of the overwhelming evidence of their senses, can tell me that they are still human. A person superintending the state for 23 years, where is the hospital that even he can use? Where are the schools that any one of their children can attend? It's not just about the quality or lack of quality of the educational system in the educational system. You're talking about almost a complete absence of the government within the space. For every 10 classroom spaces in Lagos State itself, the government has less than 3. We're in Lekki Phase 1. Beautiful place, quote and unquote. Superintended entirely by government. In the last 23 years, at least Tinubu has been responsible for how it has flowed. There isn't a single government school in the whole of this Lekki Phase 1 housing millions, not one single one government school, whether primary or secondary. No presence of any health authority within this space. And this is the peak of their planning. No pipe water. As big as Lekki is, and it is the only place in the entire Lagos State, where in the entire Lekki Peninsula, where Lagos State has pipe water. It covers less than 5% of the homes inside this estate. And then we're talking about promoting such a person to the presidency, and I'm supposed to take it. No, as far as I'm concerned, Nigerians have every right, just as I do, to vote for who I care. But I don't usually agree with Pastor Oyedepo. But there was something he said about the election result giving us the number of mad people we have in Nigeria. I don't believe those are mad people. I believe it will be telling me just how many people remain in Nigeria capable of using their brain to come to logical conclusions. That's all I will say.
Elections have consequences. Whether these people will cut costs where it should be cut, or whether they will be asking us to tighten our own belts while their own babies are sipping over their trousers, those will be the decisions to be taken. That is when your citizenship becomes an issue. Whether the federal government and the state government, the rulers generally, would continue their ruinous policies of borrowing to consume, while demanding that the rest of us continue to bleed our substance to keep them in style. These are the things that will determine the content of our citizenship. This coming election and the aftermath are going to be consequential for Nigeria and Nigerians. Elections have consequences. You must vote for competence above ethnicity and religion. And yes, records matter. We have a 7.5-year record, almost 8 years record now, of course, of General Buhari. What we've watched this morning, the buck passing, the illustration of dysfunction in its worst form, where you are having, look, it's almost like we're sat on top of a refuse dump where we've all lost our senses of smell. So when people come around and as Goebbels begins to repeat nauseating things that should not be normalized to the point where they excuse it, dice it, cut it, Nigerians must become wiser.
A year later, we're exactly where any rational being who has followed the affairs of this country and its ruiners should have concluded we will be. We're exactly where we should have known we would be. Tinubu has test run his rubber stamp National Assembly, and now you have a cure-all for each and every one of your ailments. Just sing the new old national anthem and all of your worries will disappear. We're exactly where we expected to be. Umai is making up the new coastal road alignment and design on the roof. and without any tenders, without any competitive bidding, with each and every one of the public procurement laws fully observed in breach, you have a 4 billion naira per kilometer expressway to nowhere. Where exactly where any rational being should have known we would be. Devoid of any productivity and almost completely dependent on importation, largely of luxuries. The naira has tanked, and we've drawn ever closer to 2,000 naira to a pound, like 1,500 or thereabout to the dollar. But then nobody who has been honest about the trajectories of our country can lay any claim to being surprised. It is as any reasonable person would have expected it to be. The fat cats in the National Assembly have grown fatter, and the general populace have grown poorer a year after. All pretenses that governance has more or less been discarded, and it's just straightforward looting, mindless one too. That's what that is going on. The judiciary that they build its capacity and dexterity at the management of impunity in the lead up to the legalization or shall I say rubber stamping of the legitimacy of the Jaguda's mandate. That judiciary has come full circle now, and today all you have to do is look at Kano and you see the breakneck speed with which they are bringing out one judgment after the other, one ruling right on top of the next. The constitutional order is more or less done, so it's no longer a function of who can bribe the most. It's looking more like who would dare to do the more outrageous thing. We've managed to stay afloat beyond the first year. We survived. I'm not sure in what shape Nigeria would be by the end of the 4th year of this regime, or if Nigeria might even be able to survive it. What I do know, what is quite glaring, is that our current trajectories are not sustainable. Ever more ingenious ways to tax the people are being devised. Everything the government once did, took on as responsibilities, have been jettisoned, and nobody appears to care much for whatever happens to the poor, the serfs, those who should be citizens but are anything but. You know, it's pretty easy to say I told you so, but it serves no purpose. It achieves nothing. Because if I could snare and say I told you so in relation to the Yoruba Ponus, what about those who stood in the breach, who bled for their beliefs, those who made it impossible for these miscreants to credibly lay claim to any mandate? You know, in the life of individuals, 10 years is a long time, 20 years is a lifetime. But in the life of a nation or a state, 20 years is merely a day. Everything that is done and that is not undergirded by truth and justice will eventually disintegrate. A year has passed. The only thing about the year that might be said to be distinguished is the extent of stealing, avarice, and mindless looting that has attended that year. How can I forget the 90 billion plus spent on her subsidy at a time when Student Loans Board will be getting only 5 billion. How many millions or billions to build car park at the National Assembly? Billions voted to buy luxury cars for dishonorable members and senators. There is no path that one looks to that is free of pain or devoid of deep scars. Everywhere one checks in our political landscape, all you find is debauchery. Evil men and women constantly sucking the lifeblood of the country and draining it of critical resources that should have gone towards doing a whole lot for a lot of people. The poverty of private wealth. At no time in the history of this country have I seen it more than in the last 9 years. But the level of mindless stealing that has attended the coming of these locusts in the last year is scary. Simply mind-boggling. So yeah, the year is gone. But we need to do something to move the needle, prepare the people so that we stop reacting. Reactions are for victims. Those who will be citizens, those who will gain something from this system, have to seize the initiative at some point. It's a little subdued for me, because even though I set out to talk to you about a year of Tinubu in office, but looking at all the warnings that were issued before the enthronement of this madness, going through remarks I had made before the 25th of February and before the INEC magic, it actually becomes a rather painful exercise in self-flagellation to labor too long pointing out that you were warned. But like I said, the warnings matter very little now. What counts is what lies in front. I will urge you, in the coming days and months, get ready. Let's try and shift this needle. Something has to give, and we cannot bequeath this madness to our children. We'll see you next week, and we would have a more considered Sunday school. But I just come by today. First thing first, congratulations that you survived the first year of this Bulaba regime. Can all congratulate ourselves on that. And yeah, brace yourself. Brace yourself. Hopefully, we'll survive him. But brace yourself. There are tough times in front. Have you a blessed week in front of you. In God bless. Amen.
Ndị be anyị daalụ nne n'ugwu ka unu si na-esoro anyị na ya na-eme n'iru akwụkwọ. dịka iso wee gee ya bụ ife ịnụrụ ihe the Ballon the Gentle Lion kwugasị n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke tata anọ. Ọzọ dịka ibe ya bụ ka efi nwere ikwu gbasịta maka ya bụ ife ndị a niile o kwugasị n'iru akwụkwọ. Ife o kwuriri nne o kwuru ya dịka o si dị ka efi nwere ike ikwu gbasịta maka ya bụ ife a drop ya on the comment section below. Chetakwana ya bụ Eastern News 24 ka anyị si were wetara unu nnukwu ozi ya dị oke mkpa. Daalụ na ụmụnne m, gwanụ ka emesịa.